studio for the security space. Today, what we'll be discussing is the challenges that CISOs face in modern day security. So, whilst on the surface, to a lot of people, CISO, it can sound like quite a bit of glitz and glamour, being top of the food chain in security, but maybe, obviously, what we'll discuss today, maybe it's not all it's meant up to be. So, bit of a change. Normally I start off the pods with like definitions and stuff like this, but I've actually got a couple of stats here. I just want to see your thoughts on it. So, Enterprise Project 2022 said that the average tenure of a CISO is 18 months. That speaks to CISOs who come in, do the program, reach a stable operating state, and then they move on. A bit curious with the choice of words, whether they move on through their own accord or if they've been moved on. And then also another research from Security Infowatch actually said that CISO turnover rates are still alarmingly high, with 45% of CISOs having been in their current role for 2 years or less, which is slightly down from 53% in 2021. Regardless, that is an extraordinarily high amount of CISOs. So, I'll start with you, Rob. What do you think to them statistics?
Well, I mean, they're absolutely bang on, aren't they? I mean, I think the issue is primarily is that, you know, a CISO has every good intention once he sort of joins a company. He's got his first 90 days laid out, so you know he knows exactly what the expectations are. He's taken a look at the systems. He's done a risk assessment, whatever guise that risk assessment is in, and he has established in his mind the best way forward to move the cybersecurity space, information security space around that into a better place. By the end of the 90 days, he realises if he's in a good company that he's moving forward. But unfortunately, because people don't know what CISOs do, he tends to be at the end of the 90 days, he's basically being bolstered down by expectations from the rest of the company, understanding that change management is just not there in order to facilitate cybersecurity. And probably after the first 90 days, he's probably thinking about how long he's going to last.
That early on, yeah.
That early on.
Wow. Yeah. Do you agree?
Yeah, I'd probably say first 100 days rather than 90
Wow,
days. Just
got a
because
10
100 days sounds a bit more presidential. But I think that's certainly the case. When I've been in senior roles before, you know quite quickly how much buy-in you're going to get, even though you promise things in interviews.
Absolutely.
Whether that's the person interviewing you isn't able to keep that promise or whatever, or however that happens. But I think 18 months tends to be a natural thing. It feels right as well. I think for that kind of moving jobs, you're like, a year's too short, 2 years.
Really?
Right, I might as well do it at 18 months. It keeps me opposite ends and constantly moving targets. But yeah, I mean, if you just take a look at LinkedIn, people that we're all connected to, people change jobs quite a lot. Yeah. You can see the status is changing. But,
okay. Do you not think that's alarming? Like, because I feel like you both have obviously been in the industry for a substantial amount of time now, and I feel like you both just kind of like, yeah, that's it, that's the norm. But to me, I'm just like 18. If I had to look for a new job every 18 months, it would kind of like.
I suppose it's not looking for a job every 18 months. It's actually looking for a job every year.
Yeah.
Because your hiring cycles, it takes a couple of months to start getting up. You start having conversations after you've been there a year, because you're probably going to go through a budget cycle at some point. So depending on where in that budget cycle you're going to join, that's going to drive when you're going to start looking for a new role. I think certainly did a couple of years ago for me, because if you know you're not going to get the budget, what's the point in staying?
Yeah.
If you know you're not going to get the support to deliver anything, and it's deliver something with 50p, well, I might as well start looking. But if that's 6 months in, you think, well, can't really start looking for a new job 6 months in. So you're then 6 months, you're then a year into your job, knowing that you're going to look.
Yeah.
So
and do you not have like chats with the board where we discuss like a 3-year and a 5-year plan? Because like, how can you realistically have these chats if you know in your head that you might be out the door in 12? What's your thoughts?
I mean, when you land, you go in with all good intention. I mean, the whole emphasis is, we're in this game to make things better. I think the problem is there is a insufficient cooperation in language and how that is motivated by a board. So they don't tend to understand the realism of what you're asking for. But secondly to that is that, you've never ever seen a forecast for a company that says, we're going to just lose, because that's not, that doesn't make any sense. So when you're putting your budget together, you're understanding exactly what the requirements are. But whether you hit those measures, when the company has the ability to hand over those budgets, is also important. So remember that those budgets are sliding scales. I've never seen a budget go up. I've always seen a budget come down. And it depends on how far it comes down in the first 6 months, the first 12 months, the first year and a half.
Yeah.
So there's always that expectation. But I suppose I'd also like to say that even if everything goes well, a CISO will probably be looking for his new position after 3 years because he'll be looking for some new challenges.
I think this goes into the different kinds of CISO you can get.
Yeah.
So you get transformative CISOs, you get BAU CISOs, essentially. So if you've done a transformation and you've taken it from nobody's ever hired a security person in that business before, because you've had IT people doing the best they can, which is fine in some respects, but you've had somebody do that transformation, they don't want to do BAU. Why would you? If you're all about doing transformation stuff and making things better and turning things around, why would you stay when that's done? Now, if that would generally be a 3-year cycle. But if you're not, again, you come down to if I'm not going to get there, I'll go somewhere else and go to another greenfield site and do that again. And that's where you start getting that churn coming in. But like I said, I think 3 years for if you get your program through, fine. I think depends. I think this then starts to come down to the different styles of business. So whether it's venture capitalist backed, whether it's private, whether it's public, PLCs, depending on the size of them, depends how they want to see 3 to 5 year plans. Because some of them, some of the other senior directors, some of the other senior people, they know they're not going to be there for 5 years because they get elected every 3 years.
Yep.
So why would they commit to something that's spending past what they're going to be there for?
Absolutely.
So then you run into that problem as well.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. So, are you saying that in a way, if you do a good job, you kind of work yourself out of a job? Is that what you're saying? Because you've come in, you've delivered what you've come to deliver, and it's just literally time for you to start it all again and do a new project. So, is that? Yeah.
I mean, if I had everything in place, so you had secure by design in place, DevSecOps was fundamentally under control, with DAST and SAST, you had an understanding of that augmentation of how development works, and it's put out and it's put under all the processes. So we're talking about something like a fully fledged ISMS, so you know where everything's going. That's not the place that I would want to stay, because there's nothing for me to stay for. I mean, it's great and it looks good, and yay, this is how security is supposed to look. Yeah. But then what's my job?
Do you not want to see the fruits of your labour? Do you not want to be like, we've kind of got it working here, like a bit of job satisfaction? Do you know what I mean? No.
I mean, look, cybersecurity is basically mathematical orientated. It's about 360 degrees. It's about understanding the measurements. It's about the metrics. It's about wrapping that complete cybersecurity rubber around it. Once it's done, you don't need to be there to know that it's working. If that's being done correctly, then it's just going to work whether you're there or not. And there's other places that myself and Mike need to get to. There's other places that require that type of mindset.
I think as well that's kind of a utopia point of view as well. Actually, I've done something, I've delivered something. Right, great. I'll go and deliver that. I'll go and deliver that kind of thing somewhere else. Okay. Like you see it a lot with CEOs as well. You'll have a CEO that will go in as a transformative CEO to build a company up from X to Y, and then they don't want to stay after that because it's like, well, I've taken us public, why would I want to stay? That's not what that person wants to do. They want to take businesses from small businesses to public businesses that can be self-sustaining. They don't want to manage a public business.
Yep.
So I think it's kind of the similar thing that we can kind of talk about in this as well. So.
Okay.
And remember also there's two types of CISOs. So there's a technical CISO and there's very much a governance-minded sort of CISO.
Okay.
And the governance-minded CISO is more business-orientated. So he can absolutely take those controls in place and he can run with those and he doesn't have to worry about those. Whereas a technical CISO still wants to have that, that sort of lateral process in the vertical.
Yeah.
So he knows exactly what's going on. Whereas if the team's been set up and the team works, that management CISO, so called, is best applied to that type of company post that.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. I didn't even think of that. And I kind of just wanted to get into a little bit of a different element of it, in the sense of, like, obviously we talked about it being very much an opportunity, the fact that you've got like these 18 months, 3 years, it's this short-term target, it's like relentless, and we can get to that them goals in an early stage. But I want to kind of touch on the fact that maybe when it's not going as right, maybe when your head's on the chopping block, when the board kind of give you the rope to kind of hang yourself a little bit with it. And I want to talk about the mental health aspect of it, in the sense of, like, it sounds like it can be a bit of a double-edged sword, can be in a CISO. So am I right in thinking that, obviously with you guys being on the front line in these roles, or what's your sort of thoughts on this? I'll go with you, Mike, first.
I think yes. I think that's certainly a thing. It's like, and that comes down to how you're being told, not so much how you're being told stuff. It's like how you're being perceived or how you're being listened to. So
is this from the internal of the company?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to, there's only so many times you can say the same thing until you start questioning yourself whether you should be saying it.
Yep.
And when you start doing that, that's when you start getting, well, why should I bother getting up today? Why should I bother doing anything today? And then that brings in definitely the mental health thing of different kinds of stress. So as a little sidestep from that, people, when you start talking about stressful jobs, I think there's different levels of stress. There's different kinds of stress. You can have a really, really busy job as a CISO going, I've got all these risks to deal with. Yes, there's a lot of stress, but you might enjoy that stress. Whereas if you're not being listened to for even one thing, that's causing a different kind of stress, and how you deal with that. So I think there is definitely that aspect.
Okay. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I think when I definitely know it's time for me to start sort of moving is when firstly I realise the only person who's listening to me is me, and I start boring myself. And secondly, depends on whether I start reaching out to other parts of the community, like for instance Sean, like Holly, to do sanity checks.
Okay.
On whether I'm thinking overkill on these sort of things. And when you're phoning somebody up, like Holly, and you're saying, listen, just incidentally, we've got 6,500 ports open on this firewall. Surely that's not right, is it? She says, Rob, of course it's not. And then you're realizing, well, I know that. And every other cybersecurity specialist knows that. No matter whether you're a junior analyst or you're, God's gift to sort of cybersecurity. But you're still trying to phone up people's, trying to find out whether there's a spin on it that you missed.
Start questioning yourself, questioning your own decisions.
You do, exactly.
I suppose it's there's a difference, isn't there, between being in an organisation that literally sometimes they just do have them budgetary constraints, in the sense of, like, look, we understand what you're trying to do for us, but we just can't afford that. And then there's actually the mindset as well, isn't there? There's that mind. If they're there with you in the trenches going, look, we'll try and make it work, but I just don't know the budget. But if they're just going, no, you're not having the money, we'd rather do it in sales or whatever and just be all front facing, then that's when you probably know, all right, thinking.
So I think there's two sort of positions there, and I'm sure Mike would agree with me. Is if everything's quite open and abroad, so for instance, when you say, look, we really need to take a look at this, and everybody says, completely, I've listened to you, I've seen your risk metrics, I completely understand it, but business cannot just afford that at this moment in time, then I'm fairly I'm fairly happy with that, and I'm willing to dig in. I'm willing to go out and try and find some other ways of sort of dealing with that, whether it's some open source stuff or even going to the tools, writing some tools that could assist us. It's when you have engineers turning around you and telling you they don't understand why that is a problem.
Yeah.
Like for instance, layered security. They don't understand why. Well, we've got Office 365 in place.
Yep. And
we've got all of those tools from E5. So why is it a problem that we need to encrypt all traffic internally? It's that communication that really sort of you can't get through to that, and at that point, I mean, you've taken your slippers off and you've started putting your running shoes on.
I think when you've got people who you can talk about risk to, and they go, "Yeah, we understand that you've got a risk there. We're happy to accept it." You know what? Fine.
That's
fine.
It. Exactly.
If you're happy to accept it and we can write it down, I can stop caring about it.
Yep.
But if you keep having the same conversation, going, "Well, why haven't we got this place? Why can't we tick this box here?"
Yeah.
Well, because you need to do these 5 things that I've told you. Oh, Mike, you're just saying the same things over and over again. I know, because you asked me the same question.
Yeah.
And that's the annoying bit, where you're going, but you want me to do something. I've told you what we need to do, but you won't give me the budget to do it. But then you still ask how it can happen. It can't. None of this can happen. And you're spinning around in circles. That's where the annoyance is. At least if you went, look, yes, we need to put multi-factor on email. Why? Well, best practice, stops people getting in, stops all this stuff. All right, yeah, but we're happy with accepting the risk on that. All right, put it in an email. Fine, I'll shut up about it. But when it's, well, why are we struggling to get cyber insurance? Well, because the cyber insurance says we have to have multi-factor on email. So that's why. Oh. But we're not going to do that. Right, okay. But you can't get cyber insurance then.
Yeah.
And just constantly having them same conversations spinning around in circles. That's where I probably need to leave this.
Yeah. Well, I recently did a pod with JJ, and it was all about burnout, but in particular it was in the SOC, but burnout is burnout. And one of the points that we raised was sometimes, obviously, if you're working in a SOC, it'd be good to have sort of a manager that would spot that you're burnt out and have a word with you and say, look, appreciate the work that you're doing, but you just need to stop. 'Cause sometimes people lack that self-awareness, don't they? And they will work themselves into the ground. How does it work being at the top end of the chain when, if you are sort of a CSO or a CISO, and you don't have anyone sort of like directly above you where they can say like, look, you're doing all this work, but maybe just book a few days off, like appreciate it, because you might just be like working yourself into the ground, and there's no one there to kind of say like, look, take a breather. How does that sort of work?
It doesn't, does
I'm
it?
gonna say, weirdly, I've never had that, because I make sure I take time off.
So you've got the
And
self-awareness.
I make sure that
okay.
I make sure I take, like, so I'll go for a walk at lunchtime, or go, and you can tell when you go, right, I'm probably going to go for a walk now, or I'm going to go and spend some time at the gym, or all right, you know what, I'm going to take some time off this week because I'm going to go do some day drinking with some friends, because it's a good excuse now to go out and see people, but also gives me some time off, especially in the lovely weather that we're having at the moment. But I like to think I've got that self-awareness. I've not managed to. I've not fell down that trap yet.
Yeah.
I think I feel guilty sometimes for that, because you see other people when they do get stressed and you go, you shouldn't be doing that. So I've seen it in places I've worked before when people I don't manage, they're in IT, and I'm getting emails from them at 10:30 at night. When, I know you started work at 8 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
I know you left the office at 5:30. Why are you emailing me at 10:30? And I'm shouting at them, and I don't even manage them.
Yeah.
Because if they were working if they were working in my team, they would be getting told not to send emails at 10:30 at night unless it's an instant.
Yeah.
Do not do it. And I think that's a much wider culture problem within businesses.
So just to change it a little bit more then. So obviously, looking for a job as a CISO, like obviously, Mike, I know that we've had a few chats, and it's like to the outside world. So I'll kind of bring in a couple of my recruitment stories as well. It's very, very everybody's very aware of the fact at the junior level, getting onto the cyber ladder, it's not the easiest. like people are always asking, what search shall I do? Should I go down the GRC route? Should I go down the technical route? How can I switch over from infra into security? Can I do it from software development and X, Y, Z? That's very well known. But what's not as widely known, obviously because you guys are in it, you probably do know, but I think to the wider part of security, that
absolutely not. I have no idea how it works. I have no idea even how people are thinking about when they're recruiting CISOs. I just have no idea. I mean, I left the army. I took a sabbatical when I first left the army and went and did a law degree. I was, the intention of becoming a barrister, and then I realised I just didn't want to do that. That wasn't just my thing. And a friend of mine who works over in the Bank of Mellon, who also served in the military, he sort of said, "Oh, are you interested in getting back into that sort of cybersecurity thing?" And I said, "Yeah." And he sort of lined me up with an interview for Gamma.
Yeah.
And I took it over as the information security officer. I have no idea what these guys are looking for. I have no idea what their expectations are. I don't even think they understand what they're.
I was about to say, have you ever read a job spec?
No, exactly. So most of the jobs that I've got have been, a sort of recruiter sort of reached out to me. He said, they're looking for a specific, position. And remember, there's different types of CISOs as well. So not just only is there a business type CISO, and a technical CISO, but there's this also interesting thing which has come around now that they'll say a cybersecurity lead who actually turns out to be the most senior cybersecurity specialist in the company, who is definitely the CISO, but doesn't have the title, the ability to get things done, the insurance factor, which is sort of quite important, from that sort of point of view. So yeah, it's just a case of either a friend will call me up and say, look, these are looking for this guy. I've thrown your name in. They want to speak to you, and you'll go down and have a conversation. Or it'll be a recruiter. It'll be against you and somebody else. The recruiter, if they're a good recruiter, will know exactly what he's looking for and won't just bombard them with different sort of CVs. But if it's not, he's in it for the long game. So he'll put 5 or 6 guys in and not really care about how that's working. But as to how they make decisions, I don't know. I mean, do you know?
Yeah. I think we went through quite a few different job specs, didn't we? And it's like you read some of them, and you go, "That's 4 people in one."
Yeah.
You cannot hire that person.
Absolutely.
Which bit do you want more? Because you can't hire a single person to do that, not for less than 300 grand.
Yeah.
Because that's 4 specialties,
Yeah.
each with 15 years experience that you need. You cannot find that person. They're a complete unicorn.
And this guy is going to have to be strapped to a sort of to a medical device where IV drips, where he can get his sucrose and his hormone solution so he can stay alive.
I do think that's an issue as well. And I know it's not recruiters, I know it's hiring managers, but obviously shorthand, everybody says recruiters. But it's hiring managers, but then the hiring manager sometimes is not the person that job's going to report into. It's just some random person in HR. And they've just Googled CISO or Googled security certs. Because you can tell, because they always ask for CEH.
Yeah, they do, which is the most ridiculous.
You have to have a CEH.
Yeah, it's the most ridiculous exam that you
No, that's exactly.
I think there's another problem as well. I've seen, so for instance, I'll do some name dropping here. So there's a couple of recruiters in the industry, and basically they have relationships with the companies that they're recruiting for. So for instance, I've just taken up a role as the senior cybersecurity architect for the Office of Nuclear Regulation. It's a very senior position. I answer into the CISO, and the CISO is one of those great guy, by the way, who's one of those non-technical CISOs, but on the GRC side, he's done wonderful things over there. And they just want somebody to come in and do that rounded place. And they've thought of a security architect to do that. And ironically, they've been looking for one for about 12 months because nobody knows what a security architect does. It's sort of it's a weird thing, isn't it? Yeah. The people are saying that it's a new way forward to go by design, zero trust. You absolutely require that security architect to come in place and drill those things in, but nobody knows what they do. And for that reason, when you find a recruiter who has that relationship, usually you will find that recruiter will be able to speak with the hiring manager and explain to them exactly what they're looking for. Because a good recruiter in cybersecurity will understand the nature of cybersecurity and the reasons behind it.
You both hit exactly the nail on the head. Where I was looking for is a sense of, unfortunately, it doesn't matter whether you're at the junior level or at the top level. If the process of getting the recruitment right isn't on, it doesn't affect it. People might just take it at face value, be like, "Oh yeah, CISO role, that'll be easy because like there's so many, everyone that gets that level is worth their salt and will fill it no problem." And it's completely opposite. There's also less CISO roles out there than there is junior security analyst roles, even though there's like a shift that happens halfway through the ladder where like you still got the people, but there's less jobs now. It shifts. So that in itself is I speak to so many sort of skilled people at the top end. I'm just like, I just don't have anything for you this week. There's just like, there's just not as many roles out there. But I'm guessing you don't want to go for this junior SOC role. You know what I mean? So it's an excellent point, Rod, that I just wanted to come back to, in the sense of getting the recruitment right. And you made the point, Mike, about obviously if it's just HR, if it's not even the CEO or the CISO that's part of the recruitment. If the specs are going out wrong, then the candidate attraction piece is going to come back wrong, and then essentially the interview is going to be wrong, the CV is going to be wrong. If there's not a specialist recruiter in there that's sort of saying like, well, hold on a second, like, do they actually need a CEH or do they actually need X, Y, Z? Just kind of someone just to be like, no, that's not right. Then the whole thing will just unravel, and like you say, roles will be live for 12 months. Where it's just like, what's going on? Then that further jet propels, but I won't get into it today because I've said it on another pod, is this skills gap. And it's this whole like, there's just no talent out there. Well, it is. It's just not being found right because you're being lazy at that side, and the specs aren't going out right. But I won't get into that because we've probably run out of time on that one.
So I think it's really important to understand the structure of how cybersecurity should work, and that is that the leadership is not just done by the CISO, it's not just done by the head of, it's not just done by the information security manager, it's not just done by the senior analyst or senior engineer, nor is it done by the mid-level engineer, nor is it done by the junior. It's almost like if you can imagine a military unit, a sort of platoon, whereby actually the junior analyst has the ability to lean on the analyst, and the analyst has the ability to lean on the senior analyst, and that's how it's supposed to work. So what I've seen very lately is because of that momentum, what you have is you have people thinking, right, well, I don't need a senior analyst, I'll just get 3 junior analysts who are just incapable of understanding the organizational structure because they're junior analysts. So as long as you have a senior analyst or even a good, above junior analyst, in the sort of middle section, then you have the ability for that training to be sort of passed around. And it is very problematic. It's very odd. I mean, I always say this, and I keep sort of repeating because it will not get old, about this sort of skills gap. It's when a guy on LinkedIn who created a programming code for JSON comes out and says he'd seen a job spec where he wouldn't have got the job because the software that he created, they wanted somebody with 4 years experience, even though he'd only created it 18 months ago. I mean, that is just scandalous. That's not even hiring managers doing research on the things that they're talking about. It's quite detrimental to security generally and companies, widely.
Do you agree?
Yeah,
Massively.
completely, because I saw the exact same.
Yeah.
Exact same
Wasn't it?
post. It was ridiculous. But it's like I said, I think when you start getting into all that, and I've written about it before about job titles mean nothing, but then you get people who go, "Oh, I'm hiring for a junior SOC analyst type 2." Like, what? What are you doing? And then they only concentrate on that, going, "Oh, you've not done that before, therefore you can't do it." Like, but it's a different job. I think that's a big part of it. That leads into a whole separate conversation about job titles and skills gap stuff, which again probably comes back to CISO stuff. Again, is a CISO always a CISO?
Yeah.
No.
Is it?
You might be head of, you might be senior architect, you might be, the architecture thing is a bit. I will say it's a bit weird.
It's odd. It's odd.
Are you technical?
Yeah.
Or are you more abstracted and doing architecture from an abstraction point, or are you doing architecture from a solutions architecture kind of stuff where you're actually being very much hands-on? And I think there's that scale.
There is.
Where do you go? Are you hands-on architect or are you abstract architect? Two different things, because you've got the engineering bit and then you've got how do these things fit together, which ends up being more CISO-ish head of anyway.
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? But I mean, for me, when somebody reaches out and says, they require a security architect, I'm thinking technical. I'm thinking, threat hunting, all of that. But also with the GRC piece as well. So you've got that risk matrix, quantitative security management around that. Yeah.
Cool, and that brings us exactly up to our 30 minutes, chaps. So once again, thank you so much for obviously jumping in the studio today, in a nice air-conditioned studio in a very hot summer's day.
Lovely in here.
It's all right, isn't it?
The aircon was worth it.
It was worth it. So cool. Any questions raised by today's podcast? Obviously, I'll put Mike and Rob's obviously information so that obviously any questions you can ask them directly. But once again, chaps, thanks for joining us.
No, cheers. Thank you.